By the Board of Regents today for stadium improvement. As we have stressed, this will all come from private funds. It will come from the upfront capital gifts and then bonds that would be funded again by, we would call it private gifts because they're ticket revenues and the other things that are voluntary. Nothing from state appropriations, nothing from the taxpayers, nothing from the tuition payers, the students or their families. This is a athletics department project. It's a very exciting one. I think it will really put us in the forefront nationally in terms of our capabilities, and I know all of you want to turn your questions to Joe and to Bob, and so we'll just open up. Any introductory remarks you want to add to other than those that you already made to the board?
Well, again, at the time we launched this comprehensive study of our stadium and student-athlete facilities, we really did state sort of a two-part or a twin goal. One, to create world-class student-athlete experience as well as an unforgettable experience for the fans that support our program. And I absolutely believe that we met, if not exceeded, those two goals in this particular phase in presenting the conceptual master plan to President Boren and the Board of Regents.
So we'd be happy. Bob, any question, any statement you'd like to make?
Well, maybe just that it's been very well thought out, and this plan really meets every possible need we could need as a football team and all our athletic teams. It really is a great improvement in our meeting facilities, nutrition areas, workout facilities, on and on. So it's really absolutely everything that we could possibly want or need.
And with this meeting, it coincides also with our 125th anniversary campaign, which we'll be launching in September. But as of today, we are launching the private fundraising drive to raise approximately $150 million in upfront capital gifts for the stadium project. And I know that our athletics director, our football coach, other members of the staff would be happy to meet anyone who is hearing me now that feels moved already to offer generous support for this project. That we're available. The phone lines are open, as they like to say on occasions like this. This is also not only the adoption of this master plan, it's the official launching of the private fundraising campaign to make it a reality. So with that, we'll just open to questions.
Joe, I talked to President Boren about this last month, but for all you're doing, you're not increasing capacity in the stadium. How much did you guys look at that, and what went into the ultimate decision on that?
We had a little bit of a hint that the stadium capacity, while it might change in a small way, wasn't going to be part of the goal. And that's why we stated it at the beginning of this process. We really do understand the demand, the size of our population in the state, and the fact that our ticket is a very hard one to get. It's proven by the continued sellout streak that was established when Coach Stoops coached his first game in the fall of 1999 and continues today. But we set out to make it a better experience for our fans, and we certainly have done that. When you look at everything that goes into this, whether it's the services and concessions, it's the embracing of the technology, it's the way that fans want to experience the game. Certainly the structure is changing dramatically with the south end zone completing, if you will, bowling in that part of the stadium. There's a new front door to go along with the front door at the north end. Certainly the stadium tower, all of those kinds of things. Every fan that goes to our games will not only notice a change, but be able to experience a positive effect on how they consume and enjoy the game and support the Sooners.
Joe, if the funds aren't raised, is there a plan B?
Actually, this conceptual plan that has been presented and now thankfully approved by President Boren and the board is designed to allow us to move forward in any phase we want, depending on the amount of funding that is available. So it can be done in total, it could be done in 2 phases, or it could be done in a singular phase. And so we basically created the most amount of flexibility, allow us to maximize the generous gifts of the people that support our program and moving forward, hopefully in an accelerated fashion, just like the completion of this master plan has been.
What are the phases, I guess? What's the pecking order?
As we envision our approach, it would most likely be the south end zone. If we had to start first, it would be that area. I'd let Coach Stoops expand on this because it serves our student athletes more than any other part of the stadium. And of course, there'll be additional seating in the south end zone as we bowl it in. And that allows us to parse that project. The second phase would be the new stadium tower, which includes the press box. Third phase would be additional amenities at the north end, and then moving around to the east side of the stadium. You know, the reason that the east side of the stadium is sort of in that chronological order is because we started there with the stadium improvements back in 2000, 2001.
Coach Stoops has mentioned already that the reason that the very first thing done will be the filling in the south end zone because all the major improvements that affect student athletes are there. Their weight training, physical training, also flexibility training, nutrition. I may have left something out. Meeting rooms and other things. Plus also bringing our athletic administration offices down to the south end zone that'll be close to the football operations and our student athletes. So when you look at it, and additional concessions and restrooms are also there. So this is the first biggest impact, especially on our student athletes, being the south end zone.
Definitely,
Coach.
definitely.
So it would be, we'd start there if we have to move in phases. And this is a pay-as-you-go. We won't vote bonds until we have the private upfront capital gifts that we know would sustain the bonds along with the ticket revenues and the other things that will sustain the bonds. So it's a pay-as-you-go approach, but we're very optimistic from what we've been hearing from our fans that we'll be able to do this in one phase. And of course, the second phase would be, you might call it the press box phase, and that also has additional seating and additional amenities in it as well as facilities for the media.
Bob, how much of a wow factor do you see in this?
This will be a great impact on our current players and their ability for us to continue to develop them in meetings and training and lifting, running, all of that type of thing, but also in recruiting to be able to, to walk into an incredible first-class facility that meets every one of their needs as a recruit, and then to walk in the stadium and to have it, to have that impact of the stadium tower along with the whole south end zone bowled in is going to be special. I think the crowd noise factor is going to be louder, and so it's going to impact even recruits during games as well.
Did you guys look at that even acoustically, what it could do?
We did. Again, we tried to be comprehensive in our study. Again, when you're going through the conceptual phase, you have the chance to touch on a myriad of areas. Maybe not do the deepest dive, but dive deep enough where you can figure out whether or not it's possible, likely, how you could afford it, how long it would take to construct it. And from the student-athlete facilities, we spent considerable time studying with our student-athletes what they really need now and what we could project going forward. We know what other universities are doing around the country. We're trying to recognize that this is a generational project for us. And we're not just building this for the next 2 to 5 years. This is something we're projecting out. So anything that relates to state-of-the-art, whether it's right here now, coming in a year, or what we can anticipate in years to come, we can accommodate. So student-athlete, fan experience, even something with, the technological advancements, the way people want to enjoy the game, not just being there, but the multi-screen approach, having that Wi-Fi distributed sound. A lot of our fans have asked for just something simple like a handrail, and they sit in areas of the stadium that perhaps the oldest, in the structure. So there was time spent on the little things, but because this was a need to move forward in a sort of a macro way, we just did enough investigation to know what we're presenting is definitely possible.
Bob, in terms of the weight room, where do you feel like the current one maybe was lagging, and how will this help address that?
Well, a couple of things in regard to the number of athletes with all the sports that train in there. Sometimes space is an issue as well as equipment available. The other part of that is we currently will work out in one area, but with the implementation of all the movement that we do with pulling sleds, going over and under hurdles. We use hurdles. There's all kind of movement that's involved in the training as well that we have to cross the street to use the indoor facility. So this puts it all in one area, that other sports can work with you, but that you have the space also to train instead of training, there's a positive in training 10, 12 guys at one time, that it's all hands-on, but now you can, when you are squeezed for time, you can train 30, 40 guys at the same time. So there's a lot of advantage in it.
Jason, just to add to what Coach Stoops said, and going to, again, what John asked, heretofore, places like that have been referred to as a weight room, or maybe some areas for conditioning, cardio. Obviously, all of that is included, and you'll see in some of these designs. But we also know how the impact of sports science is now influencing the way our elite student athletes are training or want to train. So this particular design allows us to definitely change with the times or ahead of the times as we face them going forward. So it will be much more way that we create the synergy between strength and conditioning to nutrition and sports medicine, the analytics and everything that will be available to offer to our student athletes.
You'll see from these drawings, renderings, the way space is configured. Very high roofs, lots of light coming in, the various cardiovascular equipment here, and you'll also see all this green space for various kinds of flexibility training, other things that Coach referred to. It will not be your grandfather's Oldsmobile, your grandmother's Oldsmobile. It'll be very different, and it won't be just simply a weight room in the way we've thought of weight rooms in the past. It'll be a very comprehensive physical training facility.
Joe, as you were putting this together, was there any specific places that you looked at, whether other college venues or other athletic venues that some of the stuff was emulated on?
Both pro and college. Obviously, in the professional space, there have been many more new stadiums, and with the new stadiums, the latest and greatest of everything that people can conceptualize. But there also have been stadiums like ours, which are historic, which have been transformed. You name it. There have been all the best ones out there. We went and saw, or we had somebody involved that could provide us that information. And clearly the architect that was working with us in the master plan was also involved in the design of some of those stadiums. So we benefited by all of that kind of input. And we selected what we thought was best for Oklahoma. There may be things that others have that we decided maybe didn't fit here, and likewise we have things that nobody else has because it suits the University of Oklahoma and the people we serve.
President Boren, when you spoke to the regents, you seem sensitive to the public perception of building expanding the stadium while increasing tuition, those sorts of things. Obviously, the funds are private, but that seems like something you're really sensitive to. Is that a difficult balance?
Well, it is a balance that should be kept, I think, because some people do not realize, and that's why I went through the fact that we're one of the few athletic programs in the country, countable on two hands, basically, that are not subsidized by the university. We're not taking money that we can use to teach classes or house students or pay professors and handing it over to the athletics department. In fact, the opposite's happening. We do better than break even. In the athletics department, about $7 million a year has been subsidizing the academic mission, the library, other things. So I just want to make sure, because it's sometimes very hard for the average person, and I'm not sure I fully understood that until I became president of the university. Just the average person walking down the street doesn't necessarily say, oh, that's a separate, totally separately funded project. So it has nothing to do with tuition fees or state appropriations. We all know we got no increase in state appropriations. That's why we had to cover $8 million of fixed costs, and those are things like utility bills and things like that we have to maintain the buildings, keeping them open. That's why we had to pay for those with the tuition fee adjustment. But totally separate project, stands on its own.